Hello, good morning. I hope you are having a wonderful day. So today's topic is types of questions, specifically indigenous questions. And before I start, I want to say that obviously the indigenous topics can be sensitive, and they are sensitive for many good reasons. And it's always best to learn indigenous related information and facts from indigenous people. What I'm sharing today is more the MMI side of things and more what I learned through my journey, learning from other indigenous communities and learning from other applicants when I was applying 3 years ago or 2 years ago. And hello, good morning. I hope you are having a wonderful day. So today's topic is indigenous questions and how to approach them. And before I start, I want to say that indigenous questions are very sensitive topics and they are sensitive for very good reasons. And it's always best to learn about the indigenous questions and the indigenous topics from indigenous people. Today I'm more highlighting the MMI side of things, and I'll also share some of the stuff that I learned through my journey of preparing for my MMI. So when it comes to indigenous questions, I like to split my answer into two main points. So my structure will have two main points. The first point is the indigenous history and how in Canada, and the second point is how this relates to me as the interviewee today. So when I'm talking about the indigenous history, I like to further divide my answer into past, present, and future. I know this structure is getting a lot, but trust me, it's a good one. So indigenous history, you talk about the past. There's a lot of important things you can talk about. The main point here is that you want to show the interviewer that you know what's going on, and you are not someone who looks at things superficially, where you see an individual in the indigenous community struggling in whatever front it is, and you judge them for that. Instead, you know that there is a lot of history behind it, and that history is what led them to where they are today. So when you talk about the past, you can talk about the colonization, you can talk about the treaty being unfair, you can talk about all the oppression they faced, you can talk about all the sanctions they had, whether it was toward them, or whether it was toward their language, or their culture, or their children. You can talk about the mass graves they found, you can talk about residential schools. All those are important things to quickly mention in the past. Now, the issue with the past here is that there's a lot to mention, and sometimes I find this mistake people do is that they go and they talk for 5 minutes, 6 minutes out of 8. So it's very important that you put a time limit on this point here for 2 minutes. So mention things, and when you mention things, it's better to be specific. So what does that mean? Most people in Canada, like I hope 90 or 95% of people of Canada, know about, for example, the residential schools, but not many of them know that the last one that closed was in 1996. So when you are talking about the past, if you can throw those specific information, it shows that you have more knowledge than the average Canadian citizen. So it's very important to keep that in mind when you are talking. The second thing is the present. It's very important when you are talking that you understand that this is not a problem of the past, but rather it's a problem that still keep happening today. And one thing that I always love to mention in my answer is the study that they made, I believe in UBC, where they had two resumes, exact same copy, exact same everything, except one had a Western name and one had an Indigenous name. And they spread it, they sent the applications everywhere, and the number of interviews and phone calls that the resume with Western name received was 40% higher than the other one. So with the one with the Indigenous name. So this shows you that even until today, those problems still happen. In 2019, there was a huge incident that was discovered where some nurses and doctors were infertilizing Indigenous women when they come to the hospital, and this is something very serious. And this shows you the severity of the discrimination, as well as how recent it is. It still happens today. So this is what the present you are talking about. You are trying to show the point that this is not a problem of the past, it's a problem of the present. And then you talk about the future, not long, just 1-2 sentences saying that this is the same way this problem continued for many decades and even possibly centuries, this will probably take many decades to be fixed as well. So this is what I mean by talking about the future, that this is a process, this is something that will take time, this is something that will take effort to be fixed. So now that you talked about the history, this hopefully is only 50% of your answer. 50%, and then you talk about yourself. So it's very important when you talk about yourself to also, I like to divide the past, present, and future. So for the past, I want to talk about what this land gave me. For example, me, I am an immigrant. I came from Syria, so I came here and I benefited a lot from this land, right? I gained a lot from it. It gave me a lot of opportunities, a lot of privileges to myself and to my family, and I'm very thankful for that. And I also have an accountability and a duty to the people who are indigenous to this land, because all those benefits that I reaped from this land are based on the foundation of oppression of the indigenous people. And this makes me responsible to work toward reconciliation. So mentioning the past, mentioning how you benefit from this land and how this makes you, in a sense, responsible to work toward reconciliation as a resident of this land is very important. The present is what you have done so far. So what did you do to work toward reconciliation? Did you teach yourself? Did you educate yourself? What courses did you take? What programs did you volunteer in? So that is important. And if you have books you read, that would be helpful to mention here. And any courses you took, that will be helpful to mention here. And then the future is the last point, where you talk about if you will become a doctor, how do you want to contribute toward indigenous health? Medicine is a very powerful tool. Medicine and dentistry are very powerful tools. And with those powerful tools, you have a lot of opportunities to give back to the indigenous community and to contribute toward reconciliation. And you should mention that in your answer. So all of this kind of is a lot. You have to push all of it together, and then also at the same time you have to leave time for a follow-up question. And couple important points. Avoid saying the word Aboriginal. I think now it's not the best word to use. Instead, say Indigenous. There's also different ones as well, but I know for sure that Indigenous is appropriate to use. Aboriginal is not. And then don't say Canada, because Canada is a recent term. Canada was founded in 150 years ago. For our case, for this question, it's important to say this land instead. This land was always there. A billion years ago, the land was always there. So instead of saying Canada, I think it's more respectful to say this blessed land, the land, the blessings of this land, etc. Now, when you talk about important things to know about, and those things, like if you don't know about them, it can be very problematic for you, because those are things that are important that every Canadian citizen needs to know about. The treaty, not just what the word means, but rather like the details of it, right? Some history about it. Colonization, and the history of colonization, you'll find that there's a lot of things going on there, a lot of insults that happened to the indigenous community back there by the Western colonizers that came. And then intergenerational trauma. So also a very big and very important concept to learn about and to know how it affects the indigenous people. I want you to think about it yourself. I say this in my station. If my parents were people who went through residential schools, this will definitely make them come out with a lot of trauma and a lot of problems and mental health problems. And this in turn will really impact me. If my parents were homeless people, or this will impact me, right? So this intergenerational trauma is a real concept and an important concept to understand how what the parents went through will definitely come and impact the children. So intergenerational trauma, and then a very big one that happened recently is mass graves. Not just that there were mass graves, but rather some of the locations, approximate numbers, so that you don't say, for example, it was hundreds of children when it was thousands, or you don't say it was hundreds of thousands when it was thousands. So you need to know the approximation, so you don't sound you are as a naive person during your interview. There's others like residential schools is a big one. the healthcare problems that Indigenous people saw. Depending on where you are locally, you need to learn about some of the things that happened locally to the Indigenous communities, mental health. All of those things are also very important for you to learn about. And yeah, this is basically my humble two cents on how to approach Indigenous question. I believe that hopefully it will help you with answering those questions. And I always recommend that you learn best learn about Indigenous questions from Indigenous people. Thank you very much, and I wish you have a great rest of your day. Take care.